as we continue to work our way through the OTA portion of the offseason schedule. The Commanders have wrapped up their first week. They have mandatory minicamp like so many teams do on June 10 through 12. They have another wave of OTAs next week, and this is all about closing gaps. The offseason is about closing gaps. I've been doing this 25 years, and this is the first year I finally realized you have to figure out what your gap is that you're trying to close. Are you trying to close the gap between being the worst team in the league and the next to the worst team in the league? Are you trying to close the gap between not getting to the Super Bowl and getting there? Are you trying to win the Super Bowl? Are you trying to win the division? What gap are you trying to close? And the most obvious gap that the Washington Commanders are trying to close is the chasm that was laid bare in the NFC Championship between themselves and the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, you also have to worry about somebody closing the gap with you along the way. That's what makes it so much fun. But, Michael Holley, just generally speaking, broad brush, before we get into some of these details, do you think the Commanders have significantly closed the gap between themselves and the Eagles?
Significantly closed the gap? I wouldn't say significantly. I think they've addressed some of the areas like you talked about, because last year it was Terry McLaurin, offensively. So it's Terry McLaurin, he's the guy, and then the drop-off to the next option, offensive weapon, from McLaurin to whoever that was a pretty steep drop. And theoretically, if you can get the best out of Deebo Samuel, sure, you've corrected that area a little bit. That's better. You've improved. But defensively, Mike, you said the chasm between the Commanders and the Eagles. The reason we're talking about that is because what the Eagles were able to do in the NFC Championship game, they had their way with them. They could do. It got to the point where it was just like, oh, okay, there's nothing the Commanders can do to stop this. So have they closed that gap? Maybe they've improved that, but that's a big gap to close. So I'm going to say the Commanders are very good, but the Eagles are still the class of the division.
Yeah, I think some gaps can't be closed in one offseason because there was no widespread dismantling of the Eagles. They lost several key players. Milton Williams ends up signing with the Patriots. The guy who should have been the Super Bowl MVP, the pass rusher, whose name escapes me for some reason, I thought he should have been the MVP of the Super Bowl, so maybe this is because I'm going to be 60 in 9 days. He signs with the Arizona Cardinals, and that was the extent of it. Zach Bond stayed. Well, C.J. Gardner-Johnson was traded, but whenever someone goes, like, they backfill. And it doesn't feel like the Eagles have had a significant reduction in who they are and what they are. And the day of the NFC Championship, someone I know who is very well plugged in said the Commanders know they're going to get their asses kicked today. And they're just kind of bracing for it. And it's like, come on, man. I mean, no, I know people in the building, they know what's coming. And it's like, well, maybe they're just preparing for the worst. Like, no, they know that the Eagles are dramatically better than they are. And it's not happening for them today, and they know it. And that's why it was kind of exciting early on when, maybe, but the dam broke, and I'm with you. I think the gap is just too big. It's too big for one offseason. This is something that is a multi-year effort to try to catch and surpass the Eagles, like the years that the Chicago Bulls had to keep trying and willing their way past the Detroit Pistons. It's going to take multiple years, and even then it may not happen.
And if you look at all of it, you said you've been doing it long enough. You know how this is how it works. If you come in at Dan Quinn first year in Washington, you come in, the first thing you try to do is take over the division. And a lot of good coaches are able to do it because they identify that the teams in front of them are aging or they have some kind of cap issue, and you take advantage and you go in and you can make up ground pretty quickly. Philadelphia is in that stage where their quarterback is still young, their core is still young. They got a general manager who seems to think 2 to 3 years ahead, and so they will draft. They'll draft in positions where they already have strengths, And so if somebody leaves, you mentioned Milton Williams. Well, look at the way they've drafted on the defensive line, Mike. Oh, you can lose Milton Williams and still feel pretty good about your defensive line. It's going to be hard for anybody to come in and just take advantage of Philadelphia just wilting. That's not how you're going to do it. You're going to have to beat them. They're not going to do the work for you by just being flat-footed or holding on to players too long. They just don't think that way. That's why it's even more difficult in the NFC East than any other division.
Josh Sweat, by the way, is the name that, for whatever reason,
I'm so glad you
had slipped out of my
I'm so glad
brain.
you said it. I was thinking, who is it? Who is it? Who is it? Josh Sweat.
Josh Sweat.
Thank you.
And it's like, it was just a few months ago. It was the center of attention. I spent multiple days tracking down all of the MVP Super Bowl voters to figure out whether or not Jalen Hurts won by a landslide, a close call, because Sweat got votes, Cooper DeJean got votes, but ultimately Jalen Hurts did win by a fairly significant margin relative to the total votes available. But yes, Josh Sweat is gone, Milton Williams is gone, but the Eagles are still the Eagles. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.